Welcome back to JB Reviews. I have the Gen 2 L5P dually, and I have a high output Cummins, also a dually. In this video, we are going to be going over MPG, acceleration, all that good stuff. You don't want to miss this video. Let's go ahead and drive the Duramax first, and then we'll drive the Cummins right afterwards. One thing I love about dualies are if you ever go to like a RV dealer, or if you're looking at trailers, there's nothing these trucks can't really pull. They have great payload, they have obviously big towing capacities. We're gonna go over a bump here really quickly, and I want you guys to kind of see for both trucks how this looks. It's a pretty big bump. All right, here we go. Oh, that wasn't bad. I can't wait to do the Ram though. Let's talk about this Duramax in terms of the power. I want to show you guys under the hood, and then right after that I'll show you guys that 0 to 60 run.
This Gen 2 L5P is going to have 470 horsepower, 975 pound-feet of torque, mated to a 10-speed transmission, 342 rear end. Let's see how it sprints to 60.
All right, here we go.
$30, $60,
I was actually expecting a little bit more than that. So when these trucks do break in, I had a 2024 Chevy Silverado, and that truck literally could do 0 to 60s in like 7.6 seconds. Now we are higher above elevation, and that dead spot at the beginning, I think that might be some torque management for the break-in period. I think once you hit about 100 miles or so, that does go away, because when I put 100 miles in my dually, when I did a few of those 0 to 60 runs, it was like butter. It was like doing like in the 8s, but like once I got, you know, to 1,000 miles, I was breaking into the 7s. Some of those were like with my 37s I ran on the dually too. So, you know, no matter how you look at it, I mean, these dualies are pretty stout. Like, they do have a 12-inch ring gear, and if you are looking for a comfortable riding dually, I think that GMs are the best because of the independent front suspension. Like, it is bouncy, you know, because that suspension is built to be under load, right? So you're gonna have a little bit of a bounce, but it's not bad, not at all. Now, one thing you'll love about the Duramax is how smooth the transmission is. Sometimes you might think this is a CVT because of how smooth the transmission shifts. I don't ever feel the transmission shift with the 1-tons. But at about 70 miles an hour, you guys see where the RPMs are? That's what's so nice about that 342 rear end. You run at a little bit lower RPM, which means you're gonna have a little bit better fuel economy. And this truck is so smooth. The brake feel, because I had to slow down to get off the highway there, the brake feel is really done well. And the seats in this truck are definitely a little bit stiffer, and I don't mind that. I actually like the stiffer seats. But I'm off the gas pedal. I have the exhaust brake on right there, right? And as you would expect, there's nothing happening. That's the only thing negative about these trucks, guys. Like, you're about to see what a exhaust brake really is in a second. Like, this truck, I mean, it is slowing down, right? It's slowing down, but it's not because of the exhaust brake, it's because this truck is so heavy. But we should be to the midpoint here in a second, and I'll show you guys where we are for the fuel economy, although you already pretty much saw it, but that'll be kind of like that spot where I'll show you where the Ram is too, where this truck is compared to it. 14.7. So 14.7, we've driven 6.3 miles so far. But yeah, let's go ahead and talk about the sound level inside the interior, so you guys can kind of get an idea of how loud it is inside of here. So we're going about 65 miles an hour. To about 63. 66 to 67. the 62 out back. So this interior is super quiet. I love that about the GMs. Like, I think it's the Michelin tires. These Michelins are so smooth. They're a lot quieter than what you would expect on, you know, on a big truck like this. And when I say that this rides almost like a single rear wheel, I'm not joking when I say that. It does ride kind of like a half ton.
So here are the numbers on the door. And then at the very top here, you'll see the payload at 5,210 pounds. And this truck has a curb weight of 8,790 pounds.
You guys see where that RPM is at 80 miles an hour basically? I have the adaptive cruise control on, but we're like at 1,800 RPMs. And you cannot hear that Duramax. You can't hear any tire noise. If you do want a more comfortable pickup truck for more day-to-day driving, I think this is the clear winner here. Ford Super Duties, and I'm talking about the F-350s, they do ride slightly rougher, but not much different than this. I think Rams without the air suspension, it's hard to just say that those trucks are easy to live with day to day. For most people, it would not be. I would be okay with it, but it would be hard, I think, for me and my wife. Like, I think that I would hear her complain a lot about how stiff it is. And with the air suspension, it definitely does help, but it's not a huge difference, but it's definitely noticeable how much comfortable it is on the highway. We're pulling back in, and I'm actually I'm not shocked, but I'm happy with this fuel economy on this truck. Like, this is pretty good. So I'll stop right here. So here we are. So 13.3, 14.8 MPGs. That is not bad. Let's go ahead and jump in the Ram. That's how a diesel is supposed to sound, by the way. Although the Duramax does sound good, can't be the Cummins. So when you jump into a Ram truck, the first thing you notice is how much smaller the cab is. Oh, my door's open. So here's the bump right here. I guess that is not a big bump. It felt like a big bump when I go over it on my HE4X, but on this truck it's not that bad. So both trucks did pretty darn good. So we'll see how they do on the highway. Now this has the 6-speed transmission. Let's go ahead and discuss this inline 6 Cummins, and then we'll do that 0 to 60 run right after.
This truck does have the high output Cummins, which is going to be good for 420 horsepower. 1,075 pound-feet of torque, 6-speed transmission as I mentioned, and it's going to have the 410 rear axle. Let's see how it sprints to 60.
Here we go. That wasn't too bad for a Cummins, especially for a dually. But this truck does have the 410, so 10.96 versus, what was the GMC? The GMC I think was, here, a GMC was 9.39, so wow. Yeah, and like I told you guys, when that GMC breaks in and everything's good, it's gonna go into like the 8s and potentially even the 7s. But this truck is rougher. I mean, you can clearly probably tell, even with me sitting in the seat here, I'm just kind of bouncing around a little bit more. It's just stiff, and that's why I say that air suspension just makes the truck that much more expensive. But I just think it's worth it if you're going to be spending this kind of money anyways. I think every dually truck should just have 50-gallon fuel tank and air suspension. But it's not bad. Again, it's just one of those things where when you're driving a big truck like this with no weight on it, that suspension is just going to ride more stiffer. And I can clearly tell this truck it's a little stiffer for sure. I think the cab feels tighter. I love the layout of these trucks. I've said that many times, but it's time for Ram to do something with this cab. It's time for them to do something with this whole truck, really. but we should be on the next turn soon, and I'll show you guys this ridiculous exhaust brake. So you guys can see exhaust brake is on. I do not have tow haul mode on, right? Here it is. No excuses. No excuses. That is how an exhaust brake is supposed to work. I mean, I don't have to ever think or guess. I know for a fact. If you want a Cummins truck, that exhaust brake is coming on every single time. And if you don't see it, you'll hear it. Here it is one more time. There it is. I mean, it's just, it's amazing. Like, it's amazing how well this truck performs. And when you put a trailer behind it, it just gets that much better. But here's the negative of having that 410. You ready for this? This is the negative of having a 410. So let's get up to about 70 miles an hour. I'm gonna put the cruise control on. So you guys see it pretty much right there. At 70 miles an hour, we're just under 2,000 RPM. So we're pretty much there. And when we go 80 miles an hour, I mean, we're gonna be over 2,000. So that's the pros and cons of running that 410 in the rear. I think if you're towing less than 20,000 pounds, I would just go with the 373. Like, I think the 373 with a dually still gives you like a 30,000 pound towing capacity. So you don't really need that 410. Now, I would go with the 410 because I'd want to run bigger tires on a dually. So that's why I would choose it. We just got off the highway. And believe it or not, we're not too far behind the Duramax. Now, if you were ever wondering, should Ram go with a 10-speed transmission? I think that's too many gears for the inline six. I think this truck could get away with a 7 or 8-speed transmission. I'm being dead serious. There's only been a few occasions when I've towed with my 2019 Ram that I used to own, where I was like, man, I just wish I had one more gear. It's like between 5th and 6th gear. It's like right there. It's like, it just needs one more gear. But an 8-speed would probably be great. I think a 10-speed would probably be overkill. I think all you would need is 7 or 8 gears. And that would be just enough for that inline six Cummins. Let's check out the interior noise. So 64, 65. About 67, 68 on the window. And 62, 63 out back. But one thing I can tell right out of the gate is how much louder this transmission makes this, well, not the transmission, that rear end makes the transmission run the engine at a higher RPM. So yeah, I mean, that's the negatives of having that lower gearing out back. And if this had maybe like a 7 or 8 speed transmission, I think it would probably drop the RPM a little bit, but honestly, I don't think it would actually. I think that rear end makes the biggest difference on these trucks, guys. So just something to consider. It's a little bit louder in here because of that lower gearing. There's always pros and cons to everything. There always is. I mean, of course you want the lower gearing for better towing, but it's at the sacrifice of fuel economy. Take it or leave it.
So here are the numbers on the door. 14,000 pound gross fuel weight rating, and the payload is going to be 5,225 pounds, which means this truck weighs 8,775 pounds on the curb. At 80 miles an hour, we're at 2,200 RPMs, basically 2,250, and it's not that loud, guys. Too, I don't want to make it seem like it's like really loud inside the interior. That's not the case with this truck. But you can tell that the engine is more apparent because of this lower gearing. Now, I did notice just now, this truck at 97 grand basically does not have adaptive cruise control. That GMC did. I didn't mention that in the last video, but yeah, Ram has a lot of work to do on this truck. But we should be back soon, and I will show you guys pretty much where we are. You saw we're at about 14 MPG, so we got to see if this Ram can catch up here.
Here we go. We just pulled back in. I'm gonna go ahead and loop into this side lot. So we pretty much stop at the exact same spot right here. Oh wow. So 14.8 MPG, 13.1 miles driven. Same route, guys. That, wow. I will admit though, I did catch one extra light with the GMC, but it wasn't a long light, guys. So I think that this was still pretty close. I probably would have got maybe 15 MPG, maybe. But the GMC still won the performance test. I feel as though the Ram seats are not as stiff, but I think that the comfort level is still better with the GMC because of the ride. The Ram just feels a little bit more smaller. I mean, you can even tell from here just how much bigger the cab is on the GMC. But the Ram is still a really good contender. I mean, you can get a lot of money off on these. The GMCs, if you order one, they might negotiate with you, but for the most part, most guys I've talked to said they only get maybe $1,000 off here and there. But I hope you guys liked the video. I think that you can't go wrong with any one of these trucks, but once Ram does do a complete redesign, I'm really interested to see how it does compared to the GMCs and the Fords.